The Blood Angels were the 9th Legion of the original Space Marine legions under their Primarch Sanguinius. They are particularly well known for their bloodthirsty nature in battle. They are also one of the most long-lived chapters, and have a refined aesthetic sense. Homeworld. The homeworld of the Blood Angels is the planet Baal and its 2 moons, Baal Primus and Baal Secundus, from which the Blood Angels take their new recruits. The Blood Angels' Primarch, Sanguinius, fell upon Baal Secundus after he and his brother Primarchs were scattered across the galaxy. In ancient days, Baal and its moons had terror-like atmospheres. Baal itself was always a world of red rust deserts, but its moons were close to paradises. As the Dark Age of technology ended in the Age of Strife, civil war erupted between the world and its colonized moons, leading to the nuclear devastation of the planetary system. Baal Secundus has since been a nuclear-blasted desert world with deadly levels of radiation. This forced the world's human tribes to build cumbersome radiation suits in order to survive. Mutants were once rife upon the world, frequently at war with the remaining pure humans for dominance of the planet. History. Unification Wars and Great Crusade. Formation. The Blood Angels were created from the genetic material of their Primarch, Sanguinius. As with all of the Primarchs, Sanguinius was genetically engineered to be a supreme super-soldier but was cast into the warp during his infancy along with his brothers, and found on the nuclear-blasted moon of Baal Secundus. Originally known as the 9th Legion, the early records of the Legion show a noted absence in many of the key conquests of the Unification Wars. Instead, the Legion acted as the Emperor's inferno, ravaging and annihilating any foe they were unleashed upon. Few in number, they often served as vanguards and waging battles in small and audacious raids focusing on murderous close combat. They were often deployed to the most dangerous war zones against the most twisted of foes, holding the line alone and out of the spotlight. This was a role fitting for them, as the early 9th Legion recruited from the lost and dispossessed of Terra. Despite often bearing the marks of mutation, they were genetically sculpted into tall and fair elegant specimens. However, other dark rumors followed the Legion, which soon earned the title of the Eaters of the Dead, due to their habit of consuming enemy corpses after a battle. As the Unification Wars transitioned into the Great Crusade, the 9th Legion was deployed to hellish backwater war zones such as Neptune. On the moons of Neptune, 12,000 warriors of the 9th disappeared but nonetheless managed to endure and complete their mission. They had largely replenished their numbers taken from the barely human dregs of Neptune's tunnels. Where others may have floundered and fallen, the 9th had risen from the ashes of defeat. This process soon repeated itself again and again, with the 9th being cast into a hellish war zone only to emerge as they had before. This led to Malcador the Sigillite dubbing them the Revenant Legion. They often found themselves in the company of those legions less favored by the Lords of the Imperium, such as the Warhounds and Fourth. With each new bloody victory, the dire legends that surrounded the 9th grew and spread. They became specters that haunted the wild places of the Great Crusade, the terrors loosed by the Emperor to clear his path across the stars. The 9th accepted this duty with a grim pride, never shirking in the mantle that they wore. Each campaign was undertaken with a quiet, brooding hunger for blood and death that was as terrifying as it was effective. They fought without mercy and paid no heed to anything other than the destruction of the enemy. Shunned and isolated from the wider Imperium, they began to descend into charnel cults and bloody rituals. Various red cults formed as the Legion was broken apart by the widening crusade, and their brutality attracted censure at places such as Yarant. They began to only maintain line infantry and jump troops, in part due to the reluctance of the Imperium to supply them with more advanced weapons. Meanwhile on Baal, Sanguinius was affected by the warp, and when he was found by one of the few unmutated human tribes on Baal, he had a pair of angelic wings growing from his back. As he matured quickly, he was able to use his superhuman powers and abilities to unite the humans of Baal against the mutants and become their leader. When the Emperor found Ball in his search for the 20 Primarchs, Sanguinius immediately recognized him for who he was and knelt before him, pledging his service in 843.m30. In this, Sanguinius was one of the few Primarchs who did not challenge the Emperor upon their reunion. The Emperor then took Sanguinius and a number of his best warriors and placed him in command of the dark and brutal 9th Legion, which he would come to name the Blood Angels. The Coming of Sanguinius. Upon taking command of the Legion, Sanguinius gathered his troops and while standing alongside the famed Primarch Horus bent the knee to them, offering them his total loyalty and service without reservation. To the shunned and isolated 9th, this treatment was new and unexpected. He further earned the hearts of his legion at Tegepentorus, where he gave his blood in the maelstrom of combat and came to understand the true nature of his sons after witnessing their bloodlust and hunger. Sanguinius knew that if this path would continue, one day his legion would become monsters. Yet, he did not despair. He sought to remake the Blood Angels into a force for nobility by having each company fight alongside a Lunar Wolves contingent for the next decade. Besides gaining stature in the eyes of their peers, the nobility and honor displayed by the Lunar Wolves began to influence the sons of Sanguinius. Their Primarch was able to instill a sense of pride in them to replace their desire for carnage and bloodshed. At Anaxis 12, the Blood Angels, Lunar Wolves, and Imperial Fists under their respective Primarchs fought against a massive Rud migration that solidified their new status and bonds with the other top legions of the Great Crusade. At Centaurus Beta, they learned from Sanguinius the art of bloodlessly pacifying a planet. Soon enough fury became tempered by wisdom, and Sanguinius succeeded in his quest to reforge the Blood Angels. They soon not only became noble warriors of their own rights, but also icons across the entire Imperium. During the later part of the Great Crusade, the Blood Angels became known as being excellent shock assault troops, and formed a rivalry with the similarly assault-oriented World Eaters Legion. Throughout the Great Crusade, the Blood Angels became renowned for its Wars of Ultimatum. These campaigns of open domination against non-compliant worlds began with Sanguinius or one of his praetors affording a World One opportunity to embrace unification or face a so-called Day of Revelation, in which they would suffer the fury of the Blood Angels unleashed. Many foes confronted by the gathered Blood Angels Legion hosts were overcome with dread and awe, and capitulated without hesitation. Those who did not would see the shining countenance of the angel Sanguinius transformed into savage fury as blinding destruction was delivered from on high. However, despite their newfound fame and nobility, the Legion continued to battle with its own demons. The bloodlust that defined the early Legion remained, and Sanguinius desperately sought to both keep it a secret and find any solution he could to elevate it. The Horus Heresy. Cygnus Prime. In an attempt to divide those loyalist legions he could not sway to chaos, Horus dispatched the Blood Angels to the farthest reaches of space, where they unwittingly walked in traps of his and his master's devising. The Blood Angels' mission to the Cygnus cluster, near to the galactic core in the Ultima Segmentum, was one such venture, where the system of 7 planets and 15 moons had been taken over in bloody slaughter by the demonic hordes of a greater demon of Slaanesh, Kiris the Perverse. Thinking that they were arriving to liberate humans from their Xeno overlords, Sanguinius had no reason to suspect that his best friend, the War Master Horus, would betray him. When the Blood Angels' fleet arrived in the system, they were assaulted by chaos energies, ravaging their navigators and astropaths, killing many outright, as well sending mad panic through the Legion's ship serfs and auxiliaries, who until then had never felt the effects of chaos. Most Space Marines were immune to its effects due to their training and iron will, leaving those few not driven mad to restrain the crazed crew members and erect psychic battles. The demon conqueror of Cygnus, Kiris, had time to beam an image of itself to the Legion's Primarch, challenging him to take back Slaanesh's newest conquest. At this, Sanguinius gathered his senior officers and organized a counterattack against a foe they had no experience fighting. However, sure of their victory, Sanguinius declared, quote, "This foul creature will know what it is to face my wrath." I shall strike him down, I shall be an angel of vengeance. With Cygnus Prime covered from pole to pole with the result of demonic invasion, with millions lying dead in the streets or held in prison camps to await demonic whims, with cities razed, oceans boiled away and plains burned to cinders, the Blood Angels Legion struck in a furious assault, falling from the skies to engage crazed cultists and packs of hideous demons upon the plains of the damned. Sanguinius swore to personally cast Horus down and vanquish him, so hence made for the Cathedral of the Mark, the demon's lair. However, outside its entrance, Sanguinius was faced with the single greatest foe who would have the greatest effect on his legion and its descendants down the millennia, Kabandhar, greater demon and bloodthirster of Khorne. Confronting the angel, the bloodthirster spoke, attempting to sway him to chaos. Quote, "Why do you fight us, so-called angel? You may be able to best me, but you cannot hope to defeat chaos. My Lord Khorne is powerful beyond means you can measure. Your emperor is weak and foolish, even now he hides from us. Is he afraid to fight?" To this Sanguinius rebuked, commanding the demon to get out of his way, to allow him to cast down his master or be destroyed, to which Kabandhar scoffed that his only master is Khorne, that he does not realize the threat which the demons and chaos hold for humanity and that their ally Horus has led Sanguinius here, into a trap whilst moving to lay siege against Terra. Kabandhar further tempts Sanguinius once more, to join the forces of Khorne and destroy Horus and rule the Cygnus cluster. Sanguinius rejected the news that Horus was lying in bed with demons, claiming it as lies and proclaiming that nothing could entice him to spit on his oath of loyalty to the emperor, from which he launched himself at the demon, whilst his finest 10 companies of veterans, dreadnoughts and terminators charged into the horde of bloodletters, hounds and fury swarming around the bloodthirster. Plasma fire boiled demon blood and talons cleaved power armor and gene-enhanced bone whilst the angel pushed against the bloodthirster, a flurry of blows from his great sword meeting the demon's axe time and time again, yet still succeeding in driving him back. Seizing the initiative, Sanguinius stabbed Kabandhar through the chest, casting a terrible wound. The demon replied in pain and anger with a lash of his great whip which caught the angel's legs and crushed them within its coils before being knocked to the ground by the flat of his foe's axe. With the beast towering over him he taunted at it, "Come at me again, demon. Feel the lick of my sword a second time if you dare." To which Kabandhar replied, "I let you live this time, manling. Your legs will heal but this wound will always fester." It was at this moment that the beast let loose a mighty howl and darted across the battlefield, cutting down no less than 500 sons of Sanguinius. The psychic backlash caused by the loss of so many of his sons cast Sanguinius into unconsciousness. With their progenitor cast down, the blood angels redoubled their efforts, becoming filled with a dark berserker fury which drove them to destroy the demon horde and cleanse all of Cygnus Prime. Those demons who did not fall by their blades fled back into the Immaterium along with their overlord Horus. As they came to victory, their rage and fury subsided, whereupon they became aware of their victory. However, they had no reason to celebrate, with thousands of their brothers lying amongst the demon dead, their Primarch cast down, and the dark shadow of the rage and fury they had so recently possessed looming upon their souls. When their father awoke, his legs were already healing due to his genetic abilities as a Primarch. However, nothing could be done for searing anguish he felt for the loss of his sons at the hands of Kabandhar. Within a few days he could manage to walk, but the agony upon his soul would not abate, and with this heavy weight, he vowed that whatever the future, whatever the cost, he would rain vengeance down upon the demon Kabandhar. It was then that the message from Rogel Doran of the Imperial Fists was received, calling them back to Terra. The Blood Angels did not need to be informed of the severity of the situation facing them, and thus they set about evacuating all personnel from Cygnus back to the fleet, stowing the corpses of the fallen to be buried later on the slopes of Mount Seraph. Sanguinius ordered that no trace of the Legion remain in the Cygnus system and that the few surviving inhabitants be transported to nearby systems. Lastly, warning beacons were stationed at the warp jump points to ward off the unwary from visiting any of the planets or moons. Cygnus was to be left lifeless and rotting. Meanwhile, the Blood Angels' homeworld of Baal endured an extended siege by traitor forces. Imperium Secundus. After the battle in the Cygnus cluster, the Blood Angels were able to link up with Ultramar, and under the watchful eyes of Rupert Guilliman, Sanguinius was eventually crowned Emperor of Imperium Secundus. Ultimately, after a number of disasters, clashes between Guilliman, Sanguinius, and Lionel Johnson, and a vision by Sanguinius that the Emperor was alive, Imperium Secundus was abolished. The three Primarchs led their legions in an attempt to breach the Ruinstorm and reach Terra. Through an arduous journey, they eventually reached Davin, the nexus of the Ruinstorm, and engaged a vast demonic host. After the battle and the destruction of Davin, a way to Terra through the Ruinstorm was clear. However, in their way stood many enemy blockades, as Horus had foreseen this route. Sanguinius and the Blood Angels raced directly for Terra, as was their destiny, while Guilliman and Lionel Johnson led the Ultramarines and Dark Angels in diversionary attacks against Horus' blockade. Battle of Terra. During the Horus Heresy, the Blood Angels were one of the few legions who fought alongside the Emperor during the Battle of Terra. When Horus lowered the shields of his battle barge and the Emperor teleported aboard the ship, Sanguinius was with him. The noble Primarch became separated from the Emperor and came across Horus alone. The Warmaster tried to sway Sanguinius and turn him to chaos, but the angel-winged warrior refused, and attacked Horus. The demonically strengthened Horus slew Sanguinius, as the Primarch knew he would. He had foreseen his death, and yet still engaged the arch-heretic, knowing he would die. This has endowed many of the Blood Angels' beliefs with a deeply mystical streak. Sanguinius's violent death left a strong psychic imprint on his legion, since they partially share his DNA. However, this was a willing sacrifice that was made in order to buy the Emperor time and to give him a weakness in Horus's armor, which was key in bringing about the traitor's defeat. Horus Heresy Aftermath. Towards the very end of the Heresy, the Blood Angels began to suffer from the Black Rage to an extent unseen previously. The dying memories of their Primarch bombarded the psyche of Blood Angels, driving them into fits of violent rage. It fell to the sanguinary priests of the chapter to try and control those suffering from the Black Rage. Yet in the countless generations since the Heresy, genetic deterioration in the Blood Angels' gene seed have seen an increase in this flaw. Later, as with all other loyal legions, the Blood Angels were forced to split into many smaller chapters. High Fleet Leviathan and Dark Imperium. Main article, Devastation of Baal. Towards the end of the 41st millennium, a tendril of High Fleet Leviathan went on a direct course for the Blood Angels' homeworld, Baal. Exacerbating this already terrible threat is a massive demon army led by the dread bloodthirsty Kabandhar, which has already struck at Ammonai, the outermost planet of the Baal system. Facing a possible war on two fronts, Commander Dante sends out a call for all chapters descended from the Blood Angels to send forces to aid their ancestor legion. The Flesh Tearers were the first to do so, deploying the entire chapter for war. Ultimately all but the Lamenters did, even the renegade Knights of Blood. The Blood Angels attempted to slow the Tyrannid advance during the Cryptus campaign. Following the 13th Black Crusade and the resurrection of Rupert Guilliman, the Great Rift divides the Imperium in two. Baal and the bulk of the Blood Angels are left stranded in the Dark Imperium and must face the Tyrannids alone. In the subsequent devastation of Baal, Dante led a desperate defense alongside several successor chapters, but all seemed lost, that is until the arrival of Guilliman's Indomitus Crusade. High Fleet Leviathan is largely destroyed, ironically thanks to demonic hordes that formed as a result of the Great Rift. In the aftermath of the Battle Belisarius Call, the Zarquesitor arrives along with thousands of new Primaris Space Marine recruits to rebuild the shattered chapter. Brother Corbulo becomes fascinated with the Primaris Marines as a potential source for a cure to the Blood Angels' flaw, and follows them into battle whenever he can. Meanwhile, Dante is made regent of Imperium Nihilus by Guilliman. However, it has since become apparent that Primaris Marines are still vulnerable to the Black Rage, and Primaris too have been placed into the Death Company. Baal has become a nexus within the Dark Imperium for the war effort to reclaim the region. At Baal's Skyfall orbital dock, Dante is gathering the fleet Nihilus. Gene Seed. The sons of Sanguinius are known to have handsome and noble features, mimicking that of their Primarch. They also have retractable fangs that are dubbed the Angel's Teeth. The flaw. The Blood Angels and all their successors suffer from a psychological need to drink human blood. They call this the Red Thirst. They have no real nutritional need for blood, but when they abstain from drinking it for a long time, they grow weaker and even age. Chapter Master Dante abstained from drinking blood for centuries, and he eventually developed wrinkled skin and white hair like an old man, and likewise felt psychologically worn out. When Baal was attacked by Tyranids in 999.M41, Dante was too emotionally and physically exhausted to lead the defense, but then he drank the blood of one of his servants, killing the servant in the process, and he was rejuvenated both physically and mentally. On the other hand, if a blood angel does not resist the red thirst at all, he will eventually mutate into a monstrous form, with fangs instead of teeth, walking on all fours like a gorilla, and a bat-like face. The blood angels regularly drink bottled blood, which is usually donated willingly by their serfs. They often mix this blood with wine, which they call karash. However, blood is much more satisfying when taken directly from the body of a living person. It's even better if the victim dies in the process. The Blood Drinkers, a successor chapter of the Blood Angels, have a rite called the Rite of Holos, wherein they start by drinking blood donated by their serfs but end with eating a prisoner alive. The death of that one prisoner is more satisfying than blood from 100 serfs. The Blood Angels themselves have occasionally lost control and attacked and killed their own allies to have their blood even when they had plenty of bottled blood on hand. All Blood Angels and their successors may one day suffer the Black Rage. When they succumb to this, typically in the heat of battle, they think they are their Primarch Sanguinius in battle with Horus. In the Black Rage, the sufferer struggles to distinguish friend from foe. He might even attack his own brothers, something which usually doesn't happen with the Red Thirst. The Black Rage is incurable, and so difficult to manage that those who succumb are relegated to either the Tower of the Lost on Baal or transferred to the Death Company. In the Death Company, they seek to find a quick honorable death on the field of battle. The origins of the Red Thirst and Black Rage is hotly debated by the Blood Angels and their successors. Some blame the process of insanguination, others in deep-rooted chaos corruption in Sanguinius as he was transported to Baal. The Mechanicum has observed that blood angels have an overactive homophagia, and this combined with their blood rituals may have caused them to become more strongly affected by past memories than others. Others discuss the impact of Baal Secunda's strange cocktail of chemical toxins and radiation, as well as past evidence of mutation among the populace. The Blood Angels consider the Red Thirst to be shameful and keep it a secret from the rest of the Imperium, although by the end of the 41st millennium it has become an open secret, with many Imperials including Rubik Gilliman being aware of it. The Black Rage is also something of an open secret, though outsiders cannot distinguish it from the Red Thirst. The Blood Angels stave off the Red Thirst and Black Rage in part by practicing fine art as a hobby, such as painting or sculpting. Somehow this has a soothing effect on the inhuman beast inside all of them. The successor chapter Angels Penitent used to do the same but gave it up, and since then they suffer the Red Thirst and Black Rage at a much increased rate. The Red Thirst has been with the Blood Angels since before the Horus Heresy, and even Sanguinius suffered from it, albeit in a mild form. The Black Rage has been with the Blood Angels since the death of Sanguinius. The Primaris line of Blood Angels are more resistant to both the Red Thirst and the Black Rage, though not immune, so the Blood Angels must still have a Death Company. When he created the Primaris Blood Angels, Belisarius Cawl decided that the Emperor deliberately gave the Blood Angels the red thirst for whatever reason, and so did not try to remove it completely. Exsanguinator. The sanguinary priest can use the Exsanguinator for medical treatment of wounded Space Marines. But more importantly, the Exsanguinator is a tool for retrieving the gene seed from the body of a fallen Marine and is vital for the survival of the chapter. In the veins of every sanguinary priest flow a portion of Sanguinius's own blood. That adds to the spiritual significance of the Exsanguinator for the Blood Angels. Usually a sanguinary priest uses his influence to calm the red thirst of his battle brothers. These priests are the epitome of the noble character of Sanguinius's heirs. But there are some priests that aspire to use the gift of their Primarch. Successors. The Blood Angels Legion is known to have sired at least 5 second founding chapters, but as a chapter they sired 2 more. Many have come and gone in the millennia. Their successors, like them, are afflicted with the black rage and red thirst, and a sense of loss and grief for their fallen Primarch and have visions of his death. Although some chapters suffer from it more than others, the successors that were founded in later centuries are more harshly affected by the flaw. Some foundings teeter on the border of full-blown insanity, causing them to be on the verge of destruction, even though the chapter council thought the flaw was eradicated from the gene stocks for a while. Due to this, the Space Marines of the most recent foundings can lapse into psychosis with the slightest provocation. The Blood Angels and their successors share a special bond due to the death of their Primarch being a very real memory that threatens them when in great stress or danger, rather than being a myth of legend unlike other chapters. Due to this bond, an attack on a chapter is considered an attack on all sons of Sanguinius. Culture. Sanguinius did much to establish the culture and beliefs of the chapter. He transformed the Blood Angels from an army of killers into a legion of noble warriors that were also well versed in art and poetry. There is a mystical streak in many of the Blood Angels and a strong belief that things can be changed for the better. This belief can be seen in everything they do. They strive for perfection, be it in their works or art, martial discipline, or military doctrine. Due to their extended lifespans, Blood Angels have time to perfect their techniques in art as well as war. Blood Angels also have a habit of sleeping whenever possible in the sarcophagi used to create them. They apparently believe that it is in this slumber that they are one step closer to Sanguinius and seek to gain insight into the psyche of their forefather. The Blood Angels will spare no effort to attain the material needed to create the chapter's art and have even fought wars to obtain them. This includes bloodstone gems, from the deep caves of the Krua mountain on Ball and the larvae of the spineworm fauna. Bloodthirsty sand clams are also needed, as the white pigment used to paint the chapter's angel wings can only be obtained by crushing clam shells. Organization. Legion organization. During the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy, the Blood Angels were a Space Marine legion numbering roughly 120,000 warriors. Sanguinius created 3 spheres to encompass his hosts, each with its own chamber that would give order and purpose to the legion. 300 standard combat companies formed the outermost sphere, known as the Malak, which followed the strict guidelines of the Principia Bellicosa. The second middle sphere was composed of the officers of the Legion who served as strategic advisors to the Primarch as well as the principal planners of any Legion operation. The innermost or first sphere were known as the Immortals. These warriors stood within the inner circle of Sanguinius as well as specialist warrior chambers. Warriors of the first sphere were the most accomplished of the Legion and were assigned the most difficult and dangerous missions. Formations of the first sphere: Sanguinary Guard, Crimson Paladins, Burning Eyes, and Angel's Tears. Chapter organization. Today, as adherents of the Codex Astartes, the Blood Angels divide their battle brothers among the chapter into companies. There are 10 companies in the Blood Angels and each one is led by a captain who is guarded by elite veterans known as the Honor Guard. The only exceptions to the Codex structure allowed by the Blood Angels and its successors are the Sanguinary Guard and the Death Company. The first company is composed of the chapter's Space Marine veterans, warriors with experience forged in countless battles throughout the Imperium and trained in the use of sacred suits of Terminator armor, while the second to fifth are the battle companies who carry the weight of the chapter's combat duties. The subsequent companies are companies of reserve, composed of squads with the same designation who often act as support for the battle companies, as well as provide replacement for casualties by the line formations. The sixth company is made up of battle line squads, while the seventh and eighth companies are made up of close support squads, and the ninth company has a full complement of fire support squads. Finally, the 10th company is composed of the chapter's scouts, aspirants who have not yet earned their place as full-fledged Marines of the chapter. They also have recently come to include Vanguard Space Marine troops. The Blood Angels chapter has two ruling bodies, the Red Council and the Council of Blood. The latter is made up of senior chaplains and sanguinary priests and is responsible for spiritual and physical work to constrain the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. The Red Council meanwhile consists of the chapter's most senior officers, oversees all aspects of waging war and nominates a new chapter master when the previous one inevitably dies. As such, the Red Council is the more senior of the two bodies. Thank you for listening to this entry from Warhammer 40,000 Lexicanum.